hold me, hold me. Hold me, mind, body, and soul. Have me under control. Girl, your waistline, hold me, hold me, hold me, hold me. Hold me, mind, body, and soul. Have me under control. You're just wicked, it's obvious. You know that your waist dangerous, but you're moving as if you're innocent. You're not, you're just bubbling. In the gun, making your bum flick up. I could do it some of that, so I pull up on it, hypnotize me. My girl, when you get that wine, you're supposed to come with a caution sign. A sign that says please beware of wine. When you get that wine, you're supposed to come with a caution sign. A sign that says please beware of wine. Or wine at your own risk. Girl, your waistline, hold me, hold me, hold me, hold me. Hold me, mind, body, and soul. Have me under control. Girl, your waistline, hold me, hold me, hold me, hold me. Hold me, mind, body,
Body and soul.
control.
Control.
All right, all right. And for those who don't know, you must know by now because this is a jam. This is a whole vibe by itself. This is Kevin Little's 2025 song "Hold Me" on the Red Rum Rhythm, and we are currently joined by Mr. Kevin Lyttle this morning, and we're going to be conducting an interview with him. All right. So, Kevin, how are you?
Hey, good morning, good morning. Thanks for having me. I'm fine, I'm fine. How are you guys?
We got it now. We got it. Cool and copacetic and
Awesome.
all things nice.
All right.
All right. So, what have you been up to lately, Kevin?
A lot of things, man. A lot of things. Music, business, everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Music and business as usual. Um, we got Von Zoo launching next week in St. Vincent. The new services we're launching rides in St. Vincent next week. So um I think a lot of people would have seen all the promotions and stuff on the news and the internet that we have been putting out there. Uh, and you heard one of my new releases there, "Hold Me," which was written by Problem Child. There's
Ah.
also a new single with me and Fire Empress,
Mm-hmm.
and I just got one with Problem Child, that with me and him actually on it, that I'm about to release this week as well.
All right.
Any other
Yeah.
collaborations that we can look forward to?
So that's them. I got a Fire Empress and I got one with Problem Child.
Okay. All right. So, Kevin, let's start from the beginning, or what is sort of the beginning. All right. So, our interview with you this morning is your story from Turn Me On from then till now. All right. Now, I've
Hmm.
always been curious. So when this song started playing here on local radio, how did it blow up? What was the story like in terms of these steps and everything that happened for this particular track to blow up, to get the international attention that it received?
Um. Well, the thing is, it was just the timing. You will find with most hit song, it's a matter of timing, time and place. The song itself, I did it with the intention to give a crossover feel to soca, and it took me 3 years to get the song to cross over fully because the thing is there was no social media the way it is now, and Turn Me On was just a different sounding record and still is on to this day. Very different from the time you hear it, you know it, right? Um, the the one of the problems I had to overcome was people not knowing who I am, not seeing me,
Mhm.
thinking I'm Trinidadian, they thinking I'm Jamaican because I'm not from there, but they expect a song like that to come from there. They're not expecting that, oh, somebody from Small Island, St. Vincent, and they were calling the song dancehall.
Mhm.
And the one thing that was not helping either was that the soca people in them was a lot of them was fighting it down, saying, "Oh, soca gone dance hall," and I'm there screaming, "Oh, it's soca," and they're like,
Yeah.
"Yo,
And that's
that is not a soca song,"
and that's the thing with our raga soca. You do sort of have that bit of a fusion as well. So yeah.
Yeah, well, this is what I was saying. I was calling it raga soca and telling everybody I from St. Vincent, but the thing is that everybody was calling me Jamaican and Trinidadian because St. Vincent didn't have that big voice and still hardly does even now. There's not a a big representation for us as much as there's for Jamaica and Trinidad. Um, on the international stage. So it was really tough in the beginning. It took me 3 years. Hence why it took so long to cross the song over. To when the labels heard the record too. The record was so different. A lot of the labels were like, "We don't know. I'm not sure. I don't understand what the fuss is about." Like because it was just like they didn't know, they couldn't say no and they couldn't say yes. They just was trying to be neutral or difficult, and then finally the song started charting in Europe and went all the way up on the charts in the UK, started climbing really high, was already in the top 5 when Atlantic Records and Sony Records and everybody started calling me to sign me. And yeah, that's really how it happened. I just kept performing the song all over the world because people also was requesting me in places and clubs where you would not expect Caribbean music to get that type of love.
Okay.
Was it at that point when record companies were reaching out to you to sign you that you realized, wait, I think I'm getting big. I am going to make it big, or was it some other time? If you came to that.
It kind of all happened very, very crazily because I went from being a customs officer to being this regional star and then international without a label. And I was making so much money that at some points I wasn't even noticing that I was not I was not signed to a label. I would be selling out venues on my own and just like literally performing in clubs for major radio stations in Canada and Europe, and the things that international artists would be doing I was already doing before I got signed. So it was kind of crazy. I landed this huge concert with 50 Cent, and that concert had a lot of few new artists on it that performed before me, and then I performed before the first big act, which I think was well, no, I performed right, yeah, right before people like Busta Rhymes and who else? Lil Mo at the time. There was Fabulous and all these artists. The arena had like 40,000 people. I'm on this show with 40,000, this huge hip hop concert, and um, the next day it was all Kevin Little and 50 Cent they were talking about. Granted, I came out before him, but he was an American star. He was blowing up. He blew up in 2003, and that's when I got on the same show with him. That he was the headline, and yo, it was crazy. And that's when I got signed, and they really pushed hard to get the song out officially with them through Europe because the song was climbing on the British charts. So it was kind of like I was in 1 foot in, 1 foot out all the time. So I didn't really feel it like if I was trying to get signed. Um, so much so when it got to that point, because I was so distracted, had so much noise around me. Everybody was coming at me from all different angles. When it wasn't the labels, it was something else. So we knew something was gonna happen.
I'm
What?
sorry, Relisa.
Go ahead.
What did you do to silence the noise? How did you manage that?
I was young. I didn't really know how to silence the noise. I was just rolling with the punches. You know, I was just making noise to to um to keep up with the noise. Let's put it that way.
Okay. But what made you take that leap of faith though? Like I'm trying to I'm always curious about what is the deciding factor for some individuals because you said that you're a customs officer. You know, you have this hit song that came out. And at that time in particular, we didn't see that there were many soca artists who looked at the industry as an actual business, as in something that they could do full
Mm,
time. So
yeah.
what allowed you or what pushed you to go into this as a full time business?
Well, the thing is, I started earning crazy money. You know, I was making like $900 a month at the time at customs. Um, and would turn me on from the first weekend. I started making like 10, $15,000 a weekend.
Hmm.
You know, so I
Those
was
are the
like, okay,
decisions.
I'm gonna save my money. You know, so I
Okay.
just started saving my money and you know, help my mom build the house in St. Vincent. And you know, we had property. We have all that land in Lodge Village that was willed to me finally. But I was just somewhat brave. You know, I was also, I had a dream. You know, and the opportunity came, and I made a decision because you have one life, and sometimes you don't know where things would take you, but the signs were there as far as I saw for my career, because I have been dreaming about doing this forever. And I was, you know, I saw my mom go through a lot as a kid, struggling to take care of the household, me, my grandmother, my great grandmother. And I just really made a decision that I'm gonna be wealthy, and this was my ticket. You know, I saw it as my ticket, and I was not letting anything stop me, because from the time I saw the kind of money I could be making and was making compared, you know, making a year's salary in a weekend, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, okay, there's no question here. I can't let anything stop me. And I just started grinding, started putting the money in the bank, and just was grinding. I was not, you know, I was not a crazy spender. I understood that, you know, you don't do things until you fully understand how to deal with it. So when it came to spending money, because I wasn't as well educated on business, I just kept saving the money. I knew that what I was educated on was understanding making long-term profits from my music, which was owning my music. So I knew that I owned the publishing for Turn Me On. So I was also confident in that I would have long-term money coming in on that as well.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Um, did you think that you were going to be lasting this long in the game, right? In that, at that point in time when you made the decision, were you just going, did you say, you know what, let me milk it for what it's worth at this point in time, accumulate how much I could accumulate, and then decide? Did you think that you were going to be lasting this long?
At the time, I wasn't thinking about it. I was just working. I just went at it. You know, I wasn't really thinking. So, well, you know, there was the worry of it going away at any time and me ending up
Mhm.
broke. But the truth is, I was just happy to be making so much revenue that I was able to help my mom in a way that she never was able to do before. And um you know, that she was my world. So there was nothing else more important to me than to see her happy at the time. So I was just putting everything to her, even the paperwork that I did for my music. She had that held. She was at my bank. She was holding all the money, holding
Yeah, the
everything.
the mattress, because you know how the
Yeah,
parents
everything. Yeah. So,
are.
you know, I just kept it jiggy and just kept moving forward, because every year I moved to a different stage. You know, the first year was Trinidad, and then after Trinidad, suddenly Jamaica took me, and I did the whole Jamaica carnival, and then it just kept going. I just kept getting bookings and kept selling out everywhere that I went for 3 years until I got signed, and then I was selling out the whole of America and England, and I was doing great. So, and I made so much money. I saved the money. I was making money in USD, so I saved that money, and that when you multiply that into to Caribbean dollars, what I'm saying, I was like, okay, I ain't doing too bad. Yeah.
All right.
I'm usually always interested in the family's response to people in these sort of fields. Now, you had a job what persons would consider to be a steady job, and then you decided, listen, music is it for me, and I'm going to head into music. Now, I mean, there was the money incentive, the money was good, but
Mm.
how did your family feel, especially your mother? Hearing her son say, I'm leaving this government job and
Safe
I'm
government
just
work.
gonna go do music.
Well, okay. The thing is that I she was happy for me to do that because she knew it was my dream. She always knew that was my dream. So she was not in a position at the time to say no to me anymore. You know, from the time the song came out, the way that I was being requested, I started buying clothes. I was able to do a lot of things I couldn't do before, you
Mhm.
know, and uh, she just couldn't say anything else. She was literally making around the same amount of money as me per
Mhm.
month, working where she was working at the newspaper, and I was, at customs making the same thing. So we were like bringing like $2,000 in the house at the time. Granted, that's a lot of money if you don't have no other options.
Mhm.
But I had options, and then when Trinidad called me and I'm booked up for the whole of Trinidad, sometimes 3 shows a night, I'm looking at walking away with so much money from Trinidad in 2 months. I was like, yo, I'm not. And then it was gonna propel me to such a further level. I'm not gonna sit down there and be like, question it. Because I was singing all the time. I love to sing. I was singing all the time. My mom knew how much I loved this, and she one time she almost cried, broke down in front of me when I had to leave her at the airport to go to America, because the first time I did it, I was away for months, and then she realized it was about to be the same thing again. But she would never tell me no, because I was always in touch, always sending money, always, you know. We were getting ready to rebuild the house when I got signed and all this stuff already, and there was so much money there that she could do what she needed to do. So
And apart from the money, I guess she was also just happy to see you living out your dream as well.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
So there wasn't no tension there. I think the only time my mom got really pissed with me was when I was singing, 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 making so much noise in the neighborhood, and I was not making no money from this thing. And I was probably like still 21, 22, and she was like, "You're gonna be a very disappointed young man if this thing doesn't work out for you." That was the closest to negativity she ever said to me about my music. But other than that, she just would let me be, and the people in the neighborhood would mostly let me be. So big up my neighbors, big up my cousins. Big up from Miss Francois to to all his neighbors in the alley. I don't remember the last name. Everybody knew everybody by first name. To Dougie and Mozart, there was just so much. Everybody have to call them by their first name. Ryan and Andre and Jeffrey and you know, boy.
Careful because when you
Lance
stand and then
and
you forget
yo, cause
anybody, it's gonna be problems, right?
it's gonna be problem. It's like, cause my voice used to carry. I used to be making so much noise at home, man. People used to hear me all the way down the road. Time I
Mm,
come off the van,
mm,
so I gotta give props to my neighborhood and shout out the whole of Block 2000 and thing too, because see that Lodge Village neighborhood. If you my age group and you grew up in Lodge Village, you wouldn't you know who Kevin Little was growing up because
mm.
I was so noisy.
Yeah. Well, they heard you.
Yeah, they heard me, boy. Yeah, man.
Yeah. All right, Kevin, how have you been able to handle fame though? I know Deanna
Um,
asked you the question about silencing the noise at that time, but
yeah.
you are on an international stage. You have been able to sustain yourself this long in the industry. How have you been able to handle both the praises as well as the critique?
Well, the thing is that I've always been very humble. I've always stayed extremely humble. Even through school, just because of my upbringing from my mom. Like I said, I watched my mom struggle and raise the whole household on her own in terms of keeping everybody sustained. There was time when there was no money, but I always just at a young age I decided that, I wanted to be wealthy, but there were certain things that I was rewarded for that made me understand that humility is the way to go. So I kept humble even to a fault at times. And it kind of opened my eye to an aspect of the music business that put me in a position for long-term gain and not short-term gain, and has kept me that way. The humility was just really from the way that my mom raised me and the circumstances under which I grew up. I was raised in a neighborhood where it was rough and it was good at the same time. And a lot of people in the neighborhood parented me too, so it was really, yeah, I didn't have a father figure, but I had father figures around. Some examples weren't totally the best, but I think my personality as well is one of that, being an only child and being sheltered and not allowed to be um, exposed to things too early, kind of also kept me that way. So yeah, there was quite a few factors, that gave me that type of personality, and every time things happened with me, I was very cautious too because of my humility, because I knew that nothing lasts forever. I always had that in the back of my head. So when people would hype me up and be like, "Yo, you're a superstar, you're this, you're that," I wouldn't go, "Yeah," I would be like, thank you, and
Yeah.
and try to keep it down. I always try to be not arrogant. I kept a level of trying to push arrogance away as much as possible.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. How do you take two things I want to ask? First, how do you take care of your voice? And how did you get into choosing a manager? Was it a case where you knew what you were looking for, and or you were pointed in the right direction, so you found somebody immediately that you could work with, or a series of trial and error?
Well, one, in terms of taking care of my voice, I was the worst. I didn't know how to take care of my voice, even after vocal trainers and stuff like that. I just realized after a while the best thing I could do is just shut my mouth and keep quiet. I just
Mm,
started not singing like how I used to, because I used to make a lot of noise, constantly singing, always nervous before I go on stage. And after a while, I just figured it out that, just be quiet. Just leave it alone. When it's time for showtime, I would do a little warm up and get on stage and sing. That's about it. Um, it- the the thing I realized about vocal training is that it creates a lot of you trying to change your own sound from what it really is. and that affects your voice negatively, especially if you have a vocal trainer that's training you to sound in a way that they sound or what they do. So after a while, I finally figured out that I just need to work with the song that I have and really just leave my voice alone. And when it's time to sing on stage, I would just rock back and do a few little warm ups and then just go and attack it. Uh, and then the second question, ask me the second question
About
again.
management, how did you get into management?
Right.
Some, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, where that is concerned, I got to give a big, big shout out to Benji Cottle, who's not with us anymore, but was one of the most influential promoters ever in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. You know, he brought a lot of the stars to St. Vincent in the Caribbean that we would have never seen if it wasn't for him. You know, I went to all his shows and I got to see these people live on stage and help to somewhat sustain my dreams and make me want to do what I want to do in the way that I'm doing it today. You know, he actually was the one instrumental in introducing me to Allison Hunt, the Seven Star Entertainment, who was my first big manager originally. And I have to give thanks even more so to Keith Boye, who really set me up in the beginning to be in a position to work with this manager. As a matter of fact, you know, Keith. When I met Keith Boye, it was my colleague at Customs. I was like, "Yo, you don't know who that is? That's Keith Boye. You know, you should ask him. You should ask him for some money. I know you're trying to do your song in the studio, and you're looking for sponsor. Ask Keith. You know."
I could
And
imagine you whisper.
yeah. So, you know, so shout out Kelly at Customs too. You know, she actually it was the one who told me who Keith was. And I was like, yo, you know, can you sponsor me? He told me to come to his office and give me like 100 and something dollars to contribute to the recording of Turn Me On and some other songs. And then when I came back and I presented the songs to him, you know, he was super excited and he managed me for like 6 months. But it was a lot of riggings. It was a lot of riggings managing me because I was doing shows every weekend, you know. So after a while, he was like, Kev, I can't do this. You know, I can't keep doing it because he has his businesses home in St. Vincent, BMC agencies and all this stuff. So that's when we started looking for a manager. We started talking to Benji, and Benji introduced me to Alison Hunt, and she flew in to meet me and stuff. And the rest was history right there.
Okay. All right. So, Kevin, I know that Turn Me On is the biggest track, right? And
Yeah,
you have released other songs, but they have not reached the same sort of acclaim.
yeah.
How has this song, this one song in particular, allowed for you to, after 20 something years, to still be receiving or earning significant income from it?
Well, because it is one song, I guess, in that sense that there's only one like it. And when it plays in any genre, whether it be its own genre, which is soca, whether it be dancehall, whether it be R&B, or whether it be pop, it fits in like it belongs there. You know, Turn Me On fits in all these genres like it belongs there. It's kind of a bridge between all the genres. You could play it in an R&B party and it still feels R&B, and it could transition into something else that some other R&B artist has done. It can do the same thing in dancehall. It can do the same thing in soca. You know, the thing about Turn Me On is that it's the biggest club hit, and Billboard named it the number one the number one party song of the century, of the
Okay.
21st century.
Mhm.
Yeah, so you know the song, and not only is it radio, but it's a club hit. So
Mhm.
it plays in the clubs every time. You know, people go and request the song to hype up the party. The DJs know if they play Turn Me On, they're gonna get the party rocking. So that is how that song has done its thing. It was a place and time when that song was released where the industry needed that bridge, because Caribbean music was there doing so much contributions to the international sound of hip hop, rap, you know, even pop. You know, the Caribbean music is a major foundation of all these songs, these different genres. And I think Turn Me On came right in as the bridge that was like, okay, this is where it all, when you throw it all together,
Mhm.
you take from the hip hop and the R&B and the pop, and you take the soca, the reggae, and the dancehall, and you throw them in the middle. That's what you get. Hence, you hear the sound of Afrobeat. Now, people are singing on
Mhm.
beats
Right. Mhm.
like "Turn Me On." They're singing on beats and doing dancehall on beats like "Turn Me On" internationally because of that formula that is set there by "Turn Me On." So, you know, it is as I said there. It's a bridge that it created that bridge, that formula that mixed everything together.
Mhm. How much thanks did you give God for just landing this in your lap?
Say that again.
How much thanks did you give God for just landing this in your lap? You know, like I always think that there's this one thing that defines us sometimes, and God said, you know what, this is yours.
Yeah, well, you know, the truth is that it's all downloaded. You know, it's never just coming from you. It was there
Mhm.
before, but you're the vessel that picked up on the frequency.
Mhm.
You know, so I'm always humbled and thankful for what I've received. I think that one of the things that made me super excited to be able to do what I did was to also prove to Caribbean kids in the smaller islands and the rest of the Caribbean that you don't necessarily need to be from Jamaica. And this is not knocking Jamaica. This is just saying that Jamaica is the pinnacle of where you want to be to break into music from the Caribbean with dancehall, because dancehall with Shaba and people like Capleton was crossed over in that way. Um, and you know, the view from the rest of the islands when I came out was that I was not from the Caribbean. They were thinking I'm American. They were saying I'm from the Virgin Islands, or they were saying I'm from Canada or somewhere, or mainly I'm Jamaican.
Mhm.
Because and I just really wanted to as well to let the rest kids in the Caribbean know that the opportunity is there. It's just a matter of believing in yourself. So this was my way of giving back. You know, every time I did an interview, I would say, "Yo, I'm here to do this to show that you yourself, from a Caribbean standpoint, can literally go all the way and be a star in the whole international stage, not just in the region or in Jamaica or in Trinidad or in St. Vincent. You can be a star in the whole world. So when you aim in, don't aim just for the region or just for soca or just for dancehall. Aim to make it to the world stage, and you just never know where you would reach. So, you know, I'm extremely thankful that I was able to be the one to carry messages of the sort and have the blessing that I have with my music.
All right, Kevin, what would you say is the biggest misconception people have of you?
um, I'm not sure. Uh,
All right,
wow.
let me try to be a little bit zero in on something, right? So we
Yeah.
know that back in the day when the song came out, the remix with you and Spragga Benz came out, and you know there's this whole discussion about the Vinci flag not being shown, etc., right? I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure that you've heard the conversations that some persons may have had, etc. So from
Mm-hmm.
that, is there anything that you want to say or to clarify? Because I had my own views in terms of maybe why certain things had happened the way which it did at the time. But is there anything that you want to maybe just speak on with regards to that?
Um, Well, the truth is that St. Vincent is a very different culture in that people go with what they hear other people saying. And even with the advent of the internet, a lot of people were doing the same thing. They weren't really researching and finding out the true details. And it was really a tough time for me to actually go through that here in my own country, saying that, I don't represent them, and which and while I'm there doing 106 and Park, and all they did was in the audience, the Atlantic Records use Vincy flags as the thing to wave in the audience. They bought like probably 100 and something Vincy flags and gave them out to the audience for my performance. So, and every interview, no matter where in the world I went, I let people know I'm from St. Vincent and that I'm representing soca, and that the music is called raga soca, right? So it was very stressful for me. And me being the kind of humble person I was not so much into getting aggressive and yelling or when I say yelling, I mean going and attacking these things face on and being loud about it. I just was not that person. And I saw artists before me go through a lot of things in St. Vincent, with that type of rumor spreading and people saying things, and then it becomes a big deal, and people don't know the truth because they're not looking for the truth. They just listen to what everybody's saying. So it was very, very tough for me. I realized too it was not just driven by the at the time by local Vincentians. It was being driven from other places in the Caribbean, because there was a lot of hate coming, because a lot of people tried to stop my progress, but because of how powerful the song was, they couldn't. And there was any opportunity to find something to say to pull me down or to make me look bad, they would do it. That was the thing. They would, if any little thing happened that they could push to people to get people talking, that was what it was. So it was really tough for me hearing that, but I pushed through it. The truth is that in my even the video from Canada, the Turn Me On video, which is the biggest one, that video, the difficulty there was that there was a huge power outage throughout the United States and Canada on the East Coast for a whole 24 hours. And that was the day that the song was the video was supposed to be shot. And because there was not a lot of Vincy flags available even before, you would find a lot of Bajans flags, a lot of Trini flags, a lot of Jamaican flags when you go to buy flags back in like 2001, because it was just coming out of the 90s. And this kind of patriotism for each island was now starting to become a big deal. And so you would find the islands that have more people in the diaspora would have more flags, so you couldn't find a lot of Vincy flags. And then on top of it, there's a power outage, so people pack up the thing and gone home, so you can't find
Right.
even the
Yeah.
people to get the flags. We're trying to source Vincy flags. I think we ended up only getting about 4 of those flags. And guess what? Most of the people who turn out to do the music videos, all the girls that are living in foreign, all the pretty women, and the people who are participating in the entertainment industry like that on that level, are mostly Jamaicans.
Yeah.
And you'll find a few other islanders here, there. And it became a nightmare just sourcing people and the stuff to do the video. It took us literally about 3 days inside this huge studio warehouse studio, to actually get this video shot because we spent a lot of time in darkness. and and it was just we were in a warehouse, everybody sometimes just sitting there back and forth in and out shooting scenes, trying to make the crowd look big. A lot of the crowd in the music video was actually superimposed, like they
Mhm.
superimposed the crowd a few times to
Okay.
make it look like there was more people.
Mhm. Mhm.
Right? So it was not easy to get that music video done. What we did do to actually deal with the Vinci flag issue as well was I had a jacket that was the colors of St. Vincent. I still have it on
Mhm.
to today. Had the St. Vincent flag and it was the yellow and green and blue and stuff
Mhm.
inside it.
Okay.
So it was a challenge. I was not Jamaican, so it was very tough. I was not Trinidadian, it was even
Mhm.
tougher, because they have the diaspora. They have the most people in the diaspora and in
Mhm.
entertainment in general.
Yeah.
If they're not coming out for your show empty.
Mhm. And I think that's an important thing because I think many persons, as you correctly said, they heard something and many persons just added as they went along, or they copied wholesale what other persons were saying. And I
Yeah,
always thought that the opinion at that time was wrong, and persons just needed to stop and think just a little bit before they continued with what they were saying, right? But
yeah, yeah.
all
But
right.
the thing is too, even
Mhm.
about Turn Me On being my biggest song, it is my biggest song, but I was also a soca artist and I was representing soca while they were saying that how, oh, my music is dancehall and it ain't a soca song. This is what the soca community was saying. There was a lot of
Mhm.
hate going on,
Yeah,
so
and
so
that's the
it
thing
was
because it's
it.
rather soca.
Yeah, and then on top
Mhm.
of it, I had hits like Call Me, Last Drop, Home for
Mhm,
Carnival,
mhm,
Losing
mhm.
Control,
List them, list
Fire in
them.
Your
Mhm,
Waistline, which
mhm.
these songs were hits across the world.
Yeah.
Losing Control is still one of my biggest hits in Scandinavia. Fire in
Mhm,
Your Waistline is my biggest hit in Japan. Um, and so on and so forth. Home for Carnival is my biggest hit in the Caribbean. Call Me, Last Drop, huge records. Last Drop was number one in Jamaica. So there's all these other hits that I have, but Turn Me On is my biggest international hit in terms of all over the world.
mhm,
So, I always try to tell my Caribbean people, whether it be St. Vincent or anywhere else, that, you got to look at this thing in the right way because in terms of saying that Turn Me On is a one hit, that is not true because then you are discrediting your own country's music. Because when there's Call Me, that was a hit in St. Vincent, you're saying that that's not a hit.
mhm,
Um, and it was Last Drop. That was a hit across the region and in St. Vincent and in Trinidad and in Jamaica. Had Sprague Benz. You're saying that the Caribbean, if it's a hit in the Caribbean, it's not, it means it's not a hit. You can't call it a hit nowhere else.
mhm.
You're discrediting your own country, your own culture, your own people. You're saying that our songs in the Caribbean aren't hits.
All right. So Kevin, we have to almost wrap up here, right? But I
Yeah.
wanted to touch on something because at the start of the interview, you spoke about the other businesses that you have.
Yeah,
And what
man.
I really want for you to hit home with is that yes, you started out with Turn Me On as being your biggest international hit, right?
Yeah.
It has been able to sustain you for these number of years, but you have not just stuck to the benefits of this particular song. You've been able to diversify. So
Yeah.
speak about that in terms of the importance of yes, you've made it big, but diversifying your investments, diversifying your money, diversifying into other businesses, and why this is important.
Yeah, well, the thing is the music industry is not something that you try to bank on after you hit the lotto with it, You may hit the lotto with the music industry, but depending on where you're from and the circumstances under which you become successful in music, like 99% of artists not really making money from music. If you add up all the artists in the world that have records out, 99% of them aren't making money. They're doing it because they love it. So once you make it with it, your job right there now is to figure out how to make money, You want your money to be making money. So, the first thing I did, like I told everybody, was save my money because I didn't know. The second thing I did was seek out, figuring out what to do with the money. And one of the first things I did was make sure that the house in St. Vincent that I have in Lodge Village was built and done properly, and worth something more than it was before. So there, my money grew instantly from being a little board house
Mm-hmm.
to being worth well over $1 million, right? Um, and similarly, I invested in properties here in America. I'm sitting in the backyard of my house right now
And I was
in
watching the column the whole time.
in Miami. You know,
Mhm.
um, and this is a multi-million-dollar property, which I've turned my money into as well. The whole name of the game is turning your money into more money. And I invested in other properties. I own other properties here and in St. Vincent. I just, with my business partner, Dr. Jacqueline James Lyttle, we just purchased the building in Bottom Tongue that Magic Clean used to be in. And we're currently renovating that. So we own that building now, and there's going to be Von Zoo, which I own. It's going to be called the Von Zoo Building, and Von Zoo is going to be there as its headquarters. There's going to be a shared workspace. So all the young generation that want to go in and use a workspace when available, they could do that.
Oh.
If you need an office space to use every so often, you could do that. It's like on a monthly membership that you pay monthly for it. And there's also going to be 2 apartments on the top floor. We also, on my side of investments, there's Von Zoo, which I was mentioning there. Von Zoo, which is a food delivery. Well, it's now a super app because I started it as food delivery to test and see what would happen with it. And it went crazy instantly. So now we are expanding Von Zoo into rides, into pharmacy delivery, grocery delivery. We're also going to be doing payments inside the app as well. So, I've really just looked for niche opportunities that would give me the option of not only building wealth for myself, but giving back to where I'm from, which is the Caribbean, and first of all, my home, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I think a lot of people get caught up with um, America and the opportunities that you can get from here, and we forget about the fact that our countries don't have a lot of the things that these places have. And if you have the money, you can invest it and do those things in your own countries, and be the innovator from where you're from, instead of leaving your home. Invest back in your
Mhm.
home. So that has been my goal, because I've already done so much out here internationally and have the liquid now. So I'm just, you know doing my best to build my country where I'm from, and to expand this business throughout the Caribbean as well, because there's not a delivery or ride share app that is throughout the Caribbean.
And I love hearing these things, right? I love hearing these
Mhm.
things because you've taken what for me, God landed in your lap, you've turned it
Mhm.
into a success, and now you are multiplying that success. And
Yeah.
absolutely love to hear these type of stories. And Diana, I don't know if you have anything.
Just
Mhm.
one question from a listener. He wanted to know if let's see what the question was again. Do you get royalties for your music? That's what one of our listeners is asking.
Well, that's how I make most of my money. I do a lot of shows, but shows don't make the same amount of money as my royalties. My royalties make millions per year, and I own most of my song. So that is how I make my living. And I always gotta big up Madzad, because Madzad doing well too.
Yes.
Madzad is doing extremely well.
Mazat talking up my business, but yes, we know
Shout out
this.
Mazat,
We know
who
this.
is there just quietly doing extremely well.
We get it, Kevin. We get it. All right. So, Kevin, it has indeed been a pleasure talking to you this morning. I do have a lot more questions, but the time just does not allow for it to happen. All right. So,
Yeah.
should there be another opportunity, of course, we would look forward to having another conversation with you. But I
Mhm.
want to say again, well, officially, I've never said it to you personally, but hats off to you. Congrats on your success and congrats on what else is there to come for you with your life. All right.
Yeah, man, and
So,
don't forget to drop my new song with Fire
yeah, I'm
Empress
going to say it
next,
after. All right. That one,
right?
not directly after, but
And
after.
shout out everybody in Vonzu, all my drivers. Shout out Kenton. Shout out my boy there, Corey Millington. You know, the country manager for Vonzu, and Shanika and Yannick. You know, shout out the whole Vonzu team, man. And yo, you know, we're launching next week, so you all St. Vincent, get ready. Vonzo is launching rides next week. I'm looking inside of the system and I'm seeing all the drivers who are online on the back end of the app. You know, there's tons of drivers online waiting for when we launch so that they can start picking up and dropping people. So have you guys downloaded the app? Make sure you download the
Mhm.
old app and get ready for the notifications when the app store tell you to update to the new app that's gonna have rides in it that you can take
Mhm.
a ride to the carnival parties, and you know what I'm saying? With
No one gets
Bonzo,
tricky,
man.
man. All
Right.
right. All right. So, Kevin, thanks very much once again. And we look forward to seeing and hearing from you soon. All right. So,
All
all the
right.
best.
Thank
All
you.
right.